Welcome to another episode of Unlocking the Mind Behind Make More, Work Less. Hi, my name is Fong. I'm an entrepreneur, business strategist, real estate investor, speaker, and also a best-selling author. And every single day, I help others unlock the potentials and guide them to succeed. Today on Unlocking the Mind, we talk about another cognitive bias. And the reason why we do this is so that we could better understand how our minds work, how we can make better decisions, how we can negotiate, build better relationships, and sometimes even prevent ourselves from falling into cognitive biases. Now, for today's cognitive bias, I'm going to paint you a scenario. Have you ever planned an entire day? You were excited because you're going to get rid of 10, 15 different tasks. You're going to be productive, you're going to be busy, you're going to get it all done, and you're going to feel awesome. Only to find that at the end of the day, you only finished 5, 6 things, but you were busy throughout the entire time. I've had that happen. Have you? I'm pretty sure you have. What about this scenario? You're planning a kitchen renovation at home and you're planning, you know what, it's going to cost maybe $19,000 and maybe a month worth of work. After the project's done, it turns out to be $39,000 and it took up to 3 months to finish the whole project. Well, that in fact is planning fallacy. What exactly is planning fallacy? Well, it's predictions about how much time, effort, resources, materials is needed to complete a future task. And there's optimism in play. And that we completely underestimate the time needed or the resources or the materials needed to get that task completed. Now, a great big example about this is the Sydney Opera House. It was planned to finish in 1963 for $7 million. What actually finished it at was $102 million, and until 1973 is when it was actually completed. So that is planning fallacy. We generally underestimate how much time, how much effort, how much material is actually needed for a project to finish, or how much time something is needed for us to finish. Now, for instance, you may have that whole daily plan completely mapped out. You know you're going to finish a chapter of a book, and then you know you're going to do a video here. You know you're going to do some calls here and there, and you blocked all those times. But what you didn't do is plan for the unexpected call or the unexpected visit and all those other things that you completely didn't know is going to happen. And those kind of things kind of prolong that time and delays everything else. For instance, you might think that, you know what, tidying up your workspace is only going to take 15 minutes. But before you know it, an hour later, you finally finish your tidying up. But then that delays something else. And then as you're planning that whole speech or you're planning that presentation, you're thinking, it's going to take about an hour, 2 hours. But in the end, it takes you about 3, 4 hours to actually sit down and get everything done, get everything in on the screen and get prepared for it. So the thing is, there's a lot of outside sources that we didn't think of that actually delays our timeline, delays our effort, delays our plan. And we end up doing something else that we may or may not have planned to begin with, or end up spending more time on a certain task. And that's why during a whole day, you may feel very productive, you may feel very busy, but you actually finish half of the task that you actually planned out. So we miss deadlines, we are incurring costs that we didn't expect, and that's why planning fallacy is something that we need to try and avoid. Now, the 4 main things as to why planning fallacy actually occurs is that, number 1, we don't expect the outside forces to come in to ruin our plan. It's stuff that we don't control, and therefore we tend to not plan for that kind of stuff. We tend to not plan for things that we can't control. So therefore, we think that as long as everything we can do is controllable, it's going to follow this timeline. The second thing is we kind of have this tendency of thinking, you know what, this happened in the past. Lots of things were outside of our control. So 1, we're not going to account for that. And 2, because we've done it before, we have lessons learned, and therefore we should be able to finish it even faster. The third thing is because we want to finish something faster, we plan to finish it faster. And therefore we are more optimistic and underestimate the timeline that actually takes. And the fourth thing is we kind of disregard personal distractions that may or may not come during the day. Sometimes you may not feel well. Sometimes a person comes and visits. And therefore, those 4 things come into play, and we kind of underestimate how much time, effort, cost it's going to take to finish a certain project or a task. So that is why planning fallacy always occurs, because we are trying to maximize our efforts, maximize our efficiency by thinking that because we've done it in the past, it's going to be smooth sailing from that point. Another scenario was put out there before was where a professor asked a whole bunch of students and asked them, how long would it generally take you to finish a paper? Let's say a long paper about a report and whatnot. And majority, half of, on average, they came back with a number of 34 days. So then the next question was asked, so if everything ran exactly smooth, ran exactly according to plan, everything was perfect, how long do you think it's going to finish that paper? And the number that came out on average was about 27 days. And then worst case scenarios, you have distractions, everything comes in and you're not focused and you have off days. How long will it take you to finish that paper? Well, it came up to about 48 days is what people were estimating. On average, what the reality was everybody actually finished on average their papers in 55 days, which was way over their best case scenario, way over their expected scenario, and also way over their worst case scenario. And it's not because these people have not written a paper before, but they just underestimate the amount of time, the amount of effort, and they're just thinking they could finish things faster without actually planning for the distractions, without actually planning for all the other things that may come into play. So how do we actually go against planning fallacy? How do we plan against planning fallacy? Well, there's three things that we can consider. Number one is anchoring previous outcomes, anchoring previous results to be our very first stage. And by taking that result and using that as a first case basis allows us to already take into account all the distractions, all the stuff that happened in that first case scenario. And the thing is, by using that, we have a good basis. Another thing we can do is start asking other people about their experience, how long it took them for real, not and also counting all their distractions, counting all their miscellaneous things. So having a third person come in and looking at your overall plan is very, very advantageous. Having that coach or that mentor looking at your plan and getting their advice on their experience so that you can take something and anchor that timeline, that cost, and that effort before you start planning further on. The second thing you could do is really plan on the potential distractions that might come into play. Think of the top 3 things that may come in and plan for that. Block that time, add it to it, and then think about, okay, what else could happen so that you can actually be able to plan for the miscellaneous, plan for the distractions so that you're not underestimating all that stuff too. And number 3, round up your time. Expect more time instead of less time. That way, you're able to really be able to give a good plan and also have a good amount of effort and also plan for the cost and all that kind of stuff. Round up on cost, round up on effort, round up on timeline so that you are for sure going to be setting yourself for success. Now, the thing is, that is your base, your basis. That's your baseline, so that you know you can actually fit that timeline. If you come in sooner, great. If you go a little bit over, it's not gonna be that much over than what your original timeline is. So that is how we go against planning fallacy. Think of number 1, finding those people that's done it before, thinking about your past projects that you've done and successfully completed, taking those results and using that as your base. Then plan for the distractions. And then number 3, round up your time, round up your efforts, round up your price. So that is planning fallacy. If you enjoyed this episode and enjoyed learning about this fallacy, please look back at some of our other episodes on Unlocking the Mind. If you like this show, please support and like the Peak Potential Success Show, the Mastermind Bites, and also the Make More Mind Bites that comes up weekly. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing, liking, commenting. I love seeing the comments. And until next time, today is the day to unlock your potential. We'll see you later.